everyone, welcome to my channel. In today's video, I'm going to be doing a book review. I haven't done one of these in quite a while. I do want to backtrack and review a few books that I've read in the past, and that will be for Before the Coffee Gets Cold by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. First things first, a cup of good tea. Kind of ironic that it's tea that I'm drinking and not coffee, but I'm just gonna put it out there, I don't drink coffee. So yeah, this is a translated work by a Japanese author. I would say this is in the category of magical realism, but also speculative and literary fiction. And I just thought that I wanted to kind of have a chat about this because when I finished the book, I didn't think it was anything extraordinary, but I also kind of felt like talking about it. Maybe I did enjoy it on a deeper level, but yes, I did want to do a dedicated book review on it, and so here I am. Now if you guys are watching this and you don't know much about Before the Coffee Gets Cold, this story is set in kind of a quaint little retro style cafe, and this cafe is located in a small alleyway somewhere in Tokyo. This cafe in particular has been serving its customers carefully brewed coffee for over 100 years. However, it also offers an unusual experience where it allows the ability to travel back in time. This book is split into 4 chapters, each chapter following an individual story kind of experience, whether it be one of the staff members that are working at the cafe or a frequent regular visitor that goes to this cafe, and how each of these stories kind of interweave together, forming an overarching story that kind of explores the beauty of life through love and hope. And I just thought that this was such a wonderful read. It had so much heart to it, and I don't know, it was kind of touching in a way. It had a very simple sort of premise. Even though it involved time travel, it wasn't like something super scientific. It was kind of just a magical realism element that's just there. It didn't have this super deep, intense, time traveling element. It was just there. I don't know much about this author. I pretty much picked this book up at the bookstore. I definitely was drawn in by the cover, first of all. I did like the concept that it was set in this cafe and it kind of allowed people to travel back in time momentarily. So I thought that it sounded very cute, and so I picked it up. Didn't know much about the author, but I did kind of a quick little Google search on him, and I found out that this is like his first book that he's ever written. He has published another book that is set in the same kind of world. It seems like Kawaguchi is formerly a playwright, so he's produced and directed plays before, and so knowing that fact, I kind of understand how and why this story is kind of written in the way it's kind of written. Each chapter kind of feels a little episodic, a little bit repetitive in a way. It's interesting how that kind of profession translates into his actual storytelling when it comes to a novel format, and so I thought that that was very interesting and I appreciated that. Like I mentioned, the story itself has a very simple premise. It takes its time with its characters, but also paced in a way that kept me engaged with each individual stories, some more than others. I think like one of the story was a little bit stupid, but the other stories were kind of realistic. It dealt with everyday real world kind of problems that people are faced with, and so I thought that that was a little bit more interesting to read about and just relatable in a human way, and so I enjoyed most of the stories that were in here. As you can see, it's not a very long read. It's pretty short and relatively quick to read. The way it's written is kind of simple. It's not anything too complex or overly flowery. It's kind of straight to the point, and I kind of like that. And it also doesn't try to do anything too deep with the storytelling. The characters are kind of faced with, the everyday real life sort of problems, and they're trying to overcome these issues, and it's kind of dealt in a very human way. And I thought that it was just so touching, and yeah, just a lovely read altogether. These individual experiences of, the visitors and the staff just really bring a lot of heart to the story when it's following how these characters are kind of dealing with their present struggles. It's kind of interesting to see how these characters resolve their current struggles and problems in their present by traveling back in time in order to move forward with their lives and kind of have some some sort of a resolution to these issues, and it was very touching. It kind of gave a very positive and happy but also sad outlook on life, but at the end of it all, it was kind of a wholesome read, even though it's kind of got pretty sad elements interwoven into the story. And so the story is kind of grounded in reality, but it also has this magical realism, time traveling element that kind of gives a fantastical twist on the story, and it's written in a way that's almost whimsical and otherworldly. Like, this cafe does feel like it's frozen in time, and it's just got this really cute vintage sort of vibe, and I really liked how the cafe was described. And also, because it's a cafe, there are moments where they detail how they're brewing the coffee, and those sort of details, even though it's kind of mundane and like wasn't really necessary to the story, to these characters' stories, it kind of still felt very I don't know, uplifting, gave kind of a cozy sort of vibe, and I really liked it. I like when books put in a little bit of detail of certain stuff, like how coffee is brewed. Not that I drink coffee, but at the same time I like those descriptions. I don't know, it's just like a cute little add-on description that kind of fleshed out the world a little bit. Not the world, because this is essentially set in one cafe. These characters do describe their life outside of, you know, this cafe and stuff, but the story is set solely in one location. And so when there are descriptions of these characters and their lives, they're kind of talking about it with another customer or one of the staff members presently at that cafe. Also, I don't know if this is going to be much of a spoiler, but like the time traveling element, there's a lot of limitations to it. If a customer came in and wanted to time travel, you had to sit in a specific spot in the cafe, and you can't leave the chair that you're sitting on. You can only travel whatever moment it is, but it has to be a moment that took place at the cafe. And how the time traveling element works is that one of the cafe members brew this coffee in a specific way, and then they serve it to you. But once you're in that seat and they pour the coffee in, you have to travel back to the present before the coffee gets cold. Also, anything you do in the past doesn't change the present, so that's the catch. So basically, when these people go back in time, it's kind of more to resolve a certain issue, like if they had taken a conversation in a different way and got something else out of that conversation. That is kind of the point of going back in time. It's not to change anything in order to affect the present. Even though certain tragic things may happen that leads to their present struggles, it also allows it to be kind of grounded and lets these characters kind of deal with the struggles. I would say that it was very human in the way these characters kind of reacted and dealt with their problems, and I thought that that was very interesting. I really liked it. It was a very simple story. It's kind of like almost slice of life. You're kind of introduced to these characters and you're kind of along for their emotional ride, and so I don't know, I just liked it. I feel like this would make such a cute little short film. I thought that this was such a cute read, because you are kind of following like the individual kind of experiences of these characters. Overall, I thought that this was a very thought-provoking story that explored kind of the importance of life and just moving forward and kind of dealing with these sort of issues. I think that this was a well-paced novel. It's short and quick. It doesn't overstay its welcome, because it had a very human kind of element with how these individuals were facing their struggles. It kept me very invested. The way the story was written was very approachable, very readable, didn't try and do anything too descriptive, and there were just like certain quotes that was just so beautiful at the same time being very simplistic. That kind of writing style very much suited the story. Really enjoying this book, and I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars on Goodreads. I just thought that this was a pretty good read to kind of break away from anything heavier or more complex in its world building and whatnot, and so I thought that this was kind of a nice book to read to keep my mind kind of not thinking too hard about the story, even though it kind of deals with more heavier topics and heavier situations that these characters are facing in their lives. And so I would highly really recommend before the coffee gets cold. I thought that this was so cute. Those are kind of my thoughts and feels about the story itself. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Please feel free to comment below some of your thoughts about the book. Also, what have you been reading? If you've been reading anything as of late, if it's anything interesting that you would like to recommend me, please let me know. And yeah, I hope you guys are all staying safe, and I will see you in my next video. Bye!